Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And it is my absolute pleasure to bring you topics that may not be necessarily front of mind or, something that you would necessarily think about. And today I think we're going to get into a topic that you're going to find is something most people don't think about. So I'd like to welcome Carrie Goetz, Chief Technology Officer of Strategy IT. I did not say that wrong, right?
Strategicom.
We're going to ask her how to say that. And an Amazon best-selling author. Carrie is an international keynote speaker and is published in 69 countries and over 250 publications. I don't think she sleeps. Carrie holds an honorary doctorate in mission-critical operations and has achieved 40-plus certifications throughout her career. She is an advocate for women in technology, writing her best-selling novel, Jumpstart Your Career in Data Centers, featuring careers for women, trades, and vets in tech and data centers. Thanks for joining us today, Carrie.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am good. Okay, now tell me how to say that word that I absolutely butchered.
Strategicom.
Strategicom. I should have known that.
Just like it's spelled.
But it doesn't look like that. Strategicom. Okay. And maybe it's because the way the IT is capitalized.
It
was
just
just
discombobulates people.
It was totally throwing me off. But thank you for being here with us today. We are so excited to have someone with so much exposure in the world. It's incredible. And we were just talking about, right before we came on, I didn't know this about you, that you used to do a TV show. Was it Technology for Parents? Is that right?
It was Internet for Parents when the Internet first came out, to teach parents how to make sure their kids were safe on the Internet.
Oh, we need some more of that today.
We do. We need a lot more of that today.
It's so... Yeah, and there's so many ways that kids can get it. Funny that you say that, because I remember when the Game Boys came out and they had Wi-Fi. Remember that? And like the more advanced Game Boys, right? And they could get on the internet. And I had no idea my kids were getting on the internet. I thought they were just playing games.
Yeah, it doesn't take them long to teach each other how to do things.
Exactly. So first, before we get into your background, I think it's really important that we highlight the networking aspect that I think is so critical to everybody's career, right? And I do that by asking how we got connected. So do you remember how we got connected?
Yeah, absolutely. Through our network. A long time ago, I started this kind of informal, which has turned out to be a little, more formal, network for women in technology. Years and years and years ago, when networking first came out, I taught a class at Interop. There were 3 women out of 1,500 in that class.
Oh, wow.
One was me, one was a woman scanning the badges, and the other one was a woman that was trying to pursue a career in IT. And so we've clearly come a long way, right? We're now way more of the workforce. And so through networking, one of the things I've done is try to have that on-ramp and that landing ramp for women to go. So if a woman shows up at a conference, I'll walk around the show floor, explain technology. I do that every time I go to a conference. And then we build up these networks of women that help other women. And not to say that we exclude men, because obviously we would be nothing without our supporters, and that includes all the men that also participate in our network, right?
Right.
But the idea was to have a more welcoming landing spot in a place where women feel comfortable to ask questions and figure out an industry, especially if it's new to them, because we don't really teach data centers. We teach IT, we teach engineering, but we don't really teach data centers in college. And so it could be a little bit daunting for some people.
Absolutely. And through that networking that you did, you met one of my good friends, Lori Ward. And she absolutely raved about you. She's like, you've got to talk to this person, Casey. And
oh God, I owe her $5, don't I?
No, it was an amazing conversation, and I know we're going to continue that here today. So let's talk about your journey, because you've had kind of a unique journey. So tell us about, how you got from A to B, and what inspired you to become a leader for women in the technology industry.
I've just always been one of these people that really enjoyed technology. I love learning new things. So technology is kind of the ideal quintessential career for lifelong learners. And I've never really been afraid to jump on any project. And so there's not really any part of this industry I haven't been in. I've run large IT departments, I've done coding, I've done networking, I have been on the consulting side probably for the majority of my career. I've run large data centers, I've commissioned them, I've decommissioned some of the ones I've commissioned because I've been in this industry so long. But it's one of those great areas where there's never a dull moment. And it is that continuously learning environment. And once you learn something, you wait 6 months, the technology is going to be different. Go back 10 years, that technology will come forward and be something, a slightly morphed version of that. But it is very much a cyclical industry, and things always change. And it intrigues me at the speed with which we compute these days.
It seems like it was like a roller coaster. Like we were going chick, 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 and then we hit that apex, and now we're whoo, and there's all the technology. Because I mean, like, some of the things we do today, I couldn't even imagine. Like, I had to up my cloud storage the other day to like 200 gigs, right? And I'm like, do you remember when we used to carry those little floppy disks just to boot up the computer?
I remember when a hard drive in a computer that was about 56K weighed a few hundred pounds and took several people to change in and out. And now we have more memory in our cell phones than we had in the original computers. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
So insane. So insane. And like, used to, like, when the phones first came out, you would have to start deleting photos. Remember that? Because you would take too many, or videos. Oh, God forbid you took a video on your phone, right?
Or your kids got a hold of your phone and did 7,384 screenshots in 9 seconds.
Mine didn't do that. Well, so did you always know that you wanted to be in tech? When was the moment when you went, that's what I'm going to do?
I actually started out in architecture. I really like the creative side of my brain. And then I started teaching that in college, and CAD came along. And I started writing programs for AutoCAD and teaching that in school and teaching all the different computer-aided engineering. And then they came up with a project to tie a bunch of the campuses together. And at the time, networking didn't exist. So it was all very much running those floppy disks back from one, SneakerNet, right? That was our network, was our sneakers. You run things back from one side to the other. And so it was a new technology, but I wasn't afraid of a computer. And they said, would you like to learn networking and help us out? And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to learn something new. And so I dove in with both feet, made a few mistakes along the way. And, as you do when you're in a hot skillet, right? Trying to sort out a new technology. But the rest has just been kind of a lifelong learning. My career has sort of pulled me along, as opposed to the other way where I really did it with intention. And I think if you talk to most people my age that are in this space, we're all the same way, because this technology didn't really exist. Data centers didn't exist. They certainly didn't exist as an industry. They were kind of a necessary evil that companies had just to have a repository for data. And now we're at the point where, it's companies can't survive without their data. If you take somebody's cell phone away, they're going to have a meltdown.
Oh, for sure.
And, 20 years ago, we didn't even have those phones hardly that you could carry around. They were super expensive and they were a giant block. So it's definitely gone along. We've come full circle. And I think we've just barely scratched the surface of where we can go.
I think it's going to be really interesting in the days to come to see where we do go. And I had one of those big block phones, by the way. I thought I was so cool, but I would never use it because it was so expensive, But I'm I have a cell phone.
Minute.
Hold on just a second. I just dropped I'm just going to set this right here. We just go with the flow, right?
There you go.
So let's talk about your books, because you've written 3 books, correct?
3, yep.
Okay, so Jumpstart Your Career in Data Centers, Educators Reference
to go with it.
Yep. And then the one that I think is so interesting is Polly Packey's Precious Payload. So let's talk about all 3 of those, and then tell me why you did the last one.
So the first one I wrote because there's just not data center education. And I would go on meetings with young sales professionals as the propeller head in the room. And once the conversation got away from something that they were trained on or they understood, their eyes glazed over. And I thought, that is a horrible way to set somebody up for success. It really
Mm,
is. And so I started teaching a lot of data center classes, and I would work with different salespeople and work with different customers, helping them understand technology. And then it kind of got to the point a couple years ago where we have 300,000 open jobs in this industry right now
wow.
for all walks of life, from trades all the way up. And most of our jobs don't require a degree. Let's just start right there. I mean, it is technology, but there's multiple ways that you can learn technology.
Hmm.
College is not the only way. And so I wanted something that was a good introduction and overview. That was the goal was 200 pages. It's a little over, but that was the goal, that you could read and digest in a weekend. So if somebody was thinking about a job in a data center, they were about to go on an interview for a data center job, or they're thinking about swapping careers, that there was something that they could digest that would give them that leg up. Just that, I mean, honestly, a little leg up is not much, but it's so helpful. We have, it's really written for everybody, but I featured careers and resources for women, trades, and vets for a good reason. One, we are, women are 50% of the population, but tech careers are not something that are really introduced
Hmm.
to women at a young age outside of coding. And I think coding is a great thing. It's an awesome career, but let's be realistic. Coding is a very specific skill set.
Yep.
And if you don't like coding, which is what we expose our kids to, a lot of people just assume that anything in tech is off the table for them because that's what they equate in their head. So that's got to go away. We have people in the military that have served our country, and they deserve every opportunity at an amazing job. And what a lot of people don't realize is a significant portion of our military is very well trained in communications, cybersecurity, but also in the trades. We have our military is one of the most amazing construction forces on the planet. And so we need all of those people. And then, of course, trades, because I don't think we celebrate trades enough. We owe
I
the
agree.
trades everything. If it weren't for the trades, nothing would be built. And
Yep.
so we would not have places for all of this compute. So I did reach out to those specifically because there's a lot of organizations that really push towards the college and college curriculum and helping with capstone projects and some of that, but nobody really addresses the other ones. And so I thought, it would be so nice if we could just make this industry relatable, get rid of all this super technical jargon, put it in there as a reference so people know what it is, but talk to it in plain, simple terms about what things do. And you can scale that, right? Cooling works for 3 kilowatts a cabinet, cooling works for 120 kilowatts a cabinet. You just have to pick the right
Mm.
solution. And so it's not that it's that difficult, it's just a matter of exposure. And we don't really have that. So I was speaking to a bunch of students, and I wanted something that would be a good giveaway. The only thing that I could find was an 800-page textbook co-authored by 59 people.
Oh,
And I thought,
wow.
nobody's going to read that in a weekend to see if they want to join an industry, right?
Right.
Much less demystify the thing. And so I decided we just really needed something that was kind of simple. And I don't know that I was the best person to write that. It's certainly not going to win a Pulitzer Prize or anything,
Not
but I
yet.
think it does what it was intended to do. And I've got some really great feedback from folks on that. So, like I said, it applies to everybody. The principles are the same. It's just some of the resources that are a little different. And then, because of the thing, in school, we really don't teach IT per se. We teach coding, we teach a few little things. I came up with the educator's reference because a lot of our educators, they have cybersecurity training or they have specific coding training. They don't understand where the code lives either. They don't understand what a data center is or how it functions, or even to be able to broach that subject with students.
Yeah.
So the educator's reference has different experiments, things that kids can do, learn about what their digital footprint is so they can be more responsible digital citizens. And then for the children's book, I mean, exposure is everything, right? The more we expose kids to at a young age, the more this becomes part of a career path for them or something that is of interest as they move down the line. So I wanted something that was kind of relatable. So how do you make a really technical subject kind of relatable to kids? So it's all about a kid sending a picture of a smile to her grandma. Um, and how it gets to the data center and waits for grandma to come pick it up. We tell kids when they play on a phone, it goes to the cloud. Well, where is the cloud? The cloud lives in a data center. And so just being able to normalize that conversation and say the words data center, I think is helpful, because now it introduces that into their vocabulary. So that's the first one. There will be other ones coming out, but that was the first one.
I love that. And I love that you made it so translatable to children and I actually think I'm going to go read this book, because I want to know how it gets from one place to another, because I'm so clueless when it comes to technology, and I'm okay with that. That's not my lane. But another lesson that I really want to point out here is that, you said most people only think of technology as coding, right? And then if coding's not for them, then they throw the whole industry away. And I think we do that so often in many careers, right? And like for me, I'm a perfect example. I was in accounting for a very long time. We're not going to call out how long. But when I decided that I didn't like accounting anymore, I didn't just throw all that away. I switched to recruiting for accounting and finance. And so it was a really smooth transition for me.
And you bring up a really good point. So when I wrote this book, the attrition rate for women in technology was 67%.
Wow.
Not that left their job, that left an entire industry despite having relevant experience. And so one of the things that I kind of felt like hindered a lot of people, and the reason that people were leaving, is that they just didn't realize where that experience was applicable and how the industry functions. And I think when you do that, then you start finding areas where I do have 3 years of IT experience. I didn't love that job, but where else could that go? Maybe I didn't like writing code, but maybe I'm great in operations. Maybe I'd be a great database administrator. Maybe I can work with construction and project management because I understand how the facility works. Now maybe I help somebody build and create facilities. And I think if you put all of that in a frame of reference where it's not so mystical and it brings it back home, then I think that's a huge leg up. If you're a single mom, that's a big thing. And one certification is a life-changing event for a single mother.
Yes,
and
it
I
is.
think that we have to make these not just accessible, but relatable. And I think, we hear all this talk about the data center alleys and the data center cities, but the real reality of the fact is there's data centers in every single city in the United States. A lot of companies have their own data centers. They're sitting in a building. You don't realize they're there, but they're there. And most of them operate 3 shifts. That's 3 shifts of people. We have 300,000 open jobs in this industry right now. That's a lot.
It is a lot, and I'm not to get too technical or in the weeds, but I'm just really curious. So, how do these data centers talk to each other?
They talk to each other through fiber optic networks that connect us, or wireless networks that are then connected to fiber. Realistically, the entire world is connected via fiber. We have subsea cables that go under the sea that connect our continents together. We have satellite, although to be fair, satellite is much slower because, it's a long trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, so fiber optic connects everything. Just like you have fiber to your home, you have fiber to a data center, you have fiber to corporate office buildings, you have fiber to smart buildings, smart cities, your cable company, all of those different ways to connect. But the actual backbone is fiber.
That is so because like for me, I walk in my house, I don't plug into anything, and I have internet, right? Which, back in the day, remember the bing bong boom, days when you had to dial up. So you still had to be connected. So I really hadn't thought about those pathways, but I have been fortunate enough to have visited a data center at one point. It's been a very long time. Are they called colos?
So colo is a type of data center. So a colocation company builds the building, the power and the cooling, and then the tenants live in the data hall, which are the different companies that put their computing inside that facility. And what that does is it allows a company not to be in the facility space, right? So somebody else does the power, the cooling, the fit outs, manage all that. All they have to worry about is their compute that sits inside.
And they're very well protected because if I remember correctly, he either had to do a finger or an eye scan or something. And put in a code.
That's one. So that's biometrics to get in. Sure.
Yeah.
It's a type of security. It's unique to everybody. Matter of fact, do you remember that movie Minority Report? where they
Yes.
dug the guy's eyeball out of his head to hold it up to the iris scanner.
Yes.
In
Yes.
reality, that wouldn't work because your iris changes signature when you lose blood flow.
Oh,
Small little piece of
interesting.
trivia. Yeah. But like fingerprints, iris prints, there's a lot of biometrics that are completely unique to us. If you unlock your phone with your
Mm-hmm.
face, right?
Yep.
That face scan is part of that. It's certainly that technology's come a long way. It wasn't perfect when it started, but we're definitely getting better.
I think that was the best piece of information right there. Do not dig out somebody's dead eye. It's not going to
Yeah,
work.
it ain't gonna work.
So,
You got to take the whole head and make sure they're living and breathing.
oh
Just
my
knock 'em out
goodness.
cold.
There you go. So, what are the most common challenges for women in technology?
I think just staying in technology and understanding. I mean, it's hard to operate in a male-dominated industry, and I think that in a lot of ways, kind of society pits us against each other, which is really silly because there's no woman that's anything in this industry without her male counterparts and without that support. And same thing with the sport of women. So it's just a matter of figuring out how you live in that space and how you work in that space and mutual respect. And I think we've come a long way. I think that, you know, in some cases, there are people that kind of, I call it playing the chick card, for lack of a better term. But if you're going to play the chick card, you need to know that that really is a thing. And I think in a lot of our interactions, we're so focused on diversity and how we're supposed to be treated that we really forget to give people grace for just saying stupid things. And sometimes if you
Mm,
just call it out, it wasn't intentional. You might have taken it that way, but it
yep.
wasn't meant to be an intentional comment. And so I think part of it's just figuring out how we work together, how we function together, and you know how you fit in that world. And part of it too, I think, is women were not really designed to toot our own horns.
True.
It's just not in our makeup. And I think that's one area that in technology, or really, it doesn't really matter what you do for a living. We have to get better at really kind of putting ourselves forward, but we also need to do a better job of supporting other women. And that's one thing that I think I've seen change probably more in the last
Yeah.
10 years than in the rest of my career. And that it used to be, there was two women, so you pit them against each other. Who's making
Exactly.
coffee? Who's running the copies, right? And we don't do that anymore. We
Mm-mm.
now support each other. And I think that women have not just earned our place in the workplace, but I think that it's proven that we're very viable and that difference of opinion and diversity really matters. Now, when I say diversity, I'm not necessarily talking about how somebody looks or what they do. I view diversity as fingerprints. And
Okay.
I think the more fingerprints that you have, the better your product, the better your outcome's going to be. Because, I mean, I'm a blonde. I hear all the blonde jokes, right? I don't have the same needs as another blonde. One other blonde might be really offended by the blonde jokes. I personally might think they're funny. So we have to realize that we're not all the same people. And as we
Yes.
design systems, for 80% of our target audience or whatever, we need to realize that they're very, very different beings. And I think when we start viewing people not as you're a woman, you're a man, you're this or you're that, and instead as individual fingerprints, that I think we're much better served in all of our systems because we're trying to address people and not demographics. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
it makes perfect sense. I so wholeheartedly agree with you. And I did want to mention, so one of the things, you're right, in the past it would be like you get two women and then it's like game on, put them up against each other. And there are two organizations here locally for me. One which is part of my organization, Success North Dallas, which is our Women in Success. And there's another organization that we partner with called the Girl Tribe. And I love the synergy between, instead of being like, oh no, we're the only one that's going to serve women around here. We're going to take from you. We combine our efforts and we support each other. And we also have that mentality within the groups so that you're not like, I mean, we've had a couple of women that wanted to come in and start trouble. And we're like, that's not what this is about. We are
Yeah.
here to support and
Well,
lift
I
up each
think,
other.
yeah. And I think everybody's just getting tired of the negativity all the way around. I
Yeah.
certainly am. I started this thing. So I very intentionally did this a while back where, everybody has a side. They have things they follow, they agree with. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's clearly not. But I decided just for my own personal sanity, because the negativity drags you down. You get sucked in
Absolutely.
and it's hard to get out of it, right?
Yep.
So I started very intentionally. I would pick up my phone if there was something negative as I was scrolling through a time waster or whatever, because I try to do things that I like on those, but the other stuff pops up. But if something popped up and it was negative, whether it was on my side and I agreed with it or thought it was funny or not, it was negative. So you condition yourself to the negativity. Set your phone upside down for 10 minutes. You won't see your messages. You won't see your little dingy-lings, all the little things that try to suck you in. Leave it upside down for 10 minutes. Pick it back up. If the next thing you see is negative, put your phone down for 10 minutes. Now, what happens is you start training yourself, right, not to engage with negativity, but you also train the algorithms and that you're not going to engage with the negativity. And after a couple weeks of that, you will find your feed changes, your outlook changes, your expectations change. Everything is very different. You can go find that negative stuff if you want to. You can pick your trusted sources, look at them 5 or 10 minutes a day, stay off of them the rest of the time. Just don't engage. And I'm going to tell you, it's a big mental shift. It changes how you think about what you can do. It changes your outlook for the day. It sets your intention. It's a very different purpose-built thing where you're using technology for your benefit as opposed to getting sucked in and being addicted to the technology. And I will tell you that it's a good thing to train your kids to do the same because there's so much negativity out there for children, and parents that do not clone their kids' phone, whether you look at it or not, that level of protection that you provide your kids, letting them know that you can see what they have, will protect them from a lot of really, really bad things.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Absolutely. Every cell provider has a service where you can control your kid's phone. You can control the apps that happen on the phone because there's other apps that are nefarious that look exactly like apps that you would expect to be on your kid's phone. And as a parent, if you don't know it's there, you don't know it's there, right? And so, like, there's one that looks like a calendar, but it's completely not. There's ways they can chat in different areas, but you can control that if you have their phone. And then when the kids, go to do something or a friend says, hey, load this, I can't do that. My mom watches my phone or my dad watches my phone. And you've just given them a bodyguard.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I mean, literally a bodyguard against no telling who else is out there on the internet. And it's not all just innocent. It's not all sweet. There are, there's bad people out there that don't want the best for your kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're seeing that all the time now. So what is the best piece of advice you've ever received that has impacted your trajectory?
I don't know that it's the best I've ever received, but the best thing I have done, and that I tell all young women to do, all young professionals to do, is to start a brag book very young. When I talk to students in high school, I tell them, start a brag book. If you write a piece of code that's really cool, if you read an article that's good, something that enhanced your learning or makes you feel good about yourself, write it down in this brag book. And you want to keep doing that throughout your career so that when you go to ask for a raise or you're looking for another job and people want your accomplishments, you're going to forget those 5-10 years down the road without having to go back and do some serious looking up. So if you have this book, you could go back and say, hey, boss, I deserve a raise because X, whatever it is. And you'll have it in your brag book, which you're going to forget about on your own. The other thing is when you're having just a really lousy crap day, and you are definitely going to have really lousy crap days in your adult life, they happen. You could go back and read some of your accomplishments and some of the things that worked really well. And then you can reignite some of those fires that you had a few years ago that you kind of forgot about. And now maybe you're viewing it with a different lens because you've grown, you've matured, you've added other experience to this. So you can go back and say, ooh, this was good, but now what if something else, right?
Yeah.
And so you provide yourself that positive emotional support. And when you get used to doing that, I think it helps you as a woman kind of not necessarily toot your own horn, but to list your accomplishments and be proud of your accomplishments. And I think that's something that everybody needs to do. And it's just such a great little frame of reference for you to be able to go back and pull those things together. And to be fair, I wish I'd have done that at a much younger age.
I love that so much. So one thing I do each evening as part of my journaling is I will list my big win for the day. I have to think of at least one big win. But here's the problem. I have hundreds of these journals, So, but I think having it in one compact notebook that
One
I can
brag
pick
book.
up.
That's all you want.
Okay, I'm starting that tonight. I am absolutely starting that tonight. So, all right, we are almost out of time, but I do want to ask you at least one of our 3 VIP questions. So, I think I would like to ask you, if your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
She screwed up a lot and made it work anyway, probably. What would I like it to say? I would like it to say that I spent as much time giving back as I did learning from others.
Oh, I love that. How do people get in touch with you and how do they buy your books?
LinkedIn is the easiest way to get in touch with me. My books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. We also do this really co-branding thing. So for companies that are in the data center space that want to give books out to students and teachers, we give them the whole first page of the book for their logos and their company information.
wow.
They can buy a chunk and hand them out because I think it's important not just to understand the industry, but to understand the employers in the industry. So we've kind of made it easy for that to happen. And that works with any of the books. But yeah, so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place where you buy your normal books, they're there. It's also on Audible too with author's notes if you're a Audible learner and you'd rather listen in the car.
Did you read your own books?
I did, yeah.
Oh.
So it's only the Jumpstart Your Career in Data Center that's on Audible right now. I didn't do the educator's reference of the children's book, but I'll probably end up doing the children's book just for fun. But the it's in there with all kinds of author notes, why I included things, and
neat.
all that kind of stuff. So you can follow along.
That would be awesome. And you've got to do the children's book on Audible. You got to get that
It
done.
would be fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thanks for shedding some light around technology, and not just women in technology, but just technology as a whole, and how we really need butts in the seats, right? We need people. If we're going to have this whole cloud thing stay around, we need people to step up
We
and
don't
learn
need
this.
to see butts in the seat. We need diverse butts in the seat. If technology is going to work for us and we're not going to be a slave to technology, we need to make sure that as many consumers of technology are involved as possible. And that includes the neurodiverse. That includes, people from all walks of life. It's so important.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. And I just have one last thing to say to you.
What's
You
that?
are a VIP.
Aw, thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.